Hare Krishna, Prabhu and Madajis, Dandavat Pranam. Thank you so much for joining our weekly Sunday morning Mangalarti program. Thank you all for joining. And today we are very fortunate to hear Srimad Bhagavata Pravachan from His Grace Achintya Caitanya Prabhu from Sridham Mayapur. Prabhu is going to join by our time 6:30, that is Indian time 8. So in case if our program, that is Mangalarti, everything is finished early, chanting, including chanting, then what we will do, if there is a time of 15-20 minutes, then we will do the Kirtan in the beginning. After that, Prabhu can able to join by 8, that is IST 8, that is 6:30 only here. In case there is, we finish the program early, we will do accordingly. I will inform you based on that. And request all the devotees, please stay at the end. So we have to discuss few things about our next week program. So please join. And today's MC will be Bhakta Bikram Prabhu. Over to you, Prabhu. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam to all the devotees assembled here. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhu evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavyo namo namaha. I am grateful for this opportunity to present yet another wonderful weekly program of our Gauranga Desh Yatra. The top 5 limbs of devotional service as stated in Caitanya Charitamrita Madhya Leela 22.128. Sadhu Sanga, Nama Kirtana, Bhagavad Shravanam, Mathura Vasa, Shri Murtir, Shraddhaye Sevana. One should associate with devotees, chant the holy names of the Lord, hear Srimad Bhagavatam, recite at Mathura, worship the deity with full faith and veneration. Let us try to follow the instructions of the Lord and proceed with the Mangala Arti, which will be sung by His Grace Ravi Vamsa Prabhu, performed by His Grace Sevaparayan Prabhu. Over to you, Prabhuji.
Jayo Gurudeva, Jayo Gurudeva, Jaya Gurudeva, Jaya Gurudeva, Jayo Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Saradavanani Loka Pranaya Karunya Kanaganatvam Bhaptasa Kalyana Gunarnavasya Vande Gurum Sri Charanaravindam Saradavanani Loka Pranaya Karunya Kanaganatvam Bhaptasa Kalyana Gunarnavasya Vande Gurum Sri Charanaravindam Maga Prabhu Ki Dhanitya Gita Vaditra Madhyan Manasora Sena Romanjakamba Sridanga Bhajo Vande Gurum Sri Charanaravindam Maga Prabhu Ki Dhanitya Gita Vaditya Madhyan Manasura Sena Romanjakamba Sridanga Bhajo Vande Gurum Sri Charanaravindam Vigrahara Nityanada Singaradan Mandiramajanajo Yuddhasa Bhaktam Sainunja Gobi Vande Gurum Sri Charanaravindam Sri Vigrahara Nityanada जगदन्मन्दिरमार्जनाय युद्धस्य भक्तं सैनुञ्जगोपी वन्दे गुरुं श्रीचरणारविन्दम् सतोर्पिता श्री भगवत्प्रसाद स्वासन्नतृप्तान् हरिभक्तसङ्गा कृत्वैव तृप्तिं भजत सदैव वन्दे गुरुं श्रीचरणारविन्दम् चतुर्विता श्री भगवत्प्रसाद स्वासन्नतृप्तान् हरिभक्तसङ्गान् कृत्वैव तृप्तिं भजत सदैव वन्दे गुरुं श्रीचरणारविन्दम् श्रीराधिकामाधवयोरपारा माधुर्यलीला गुणरूपणां तां प्रतिशनास्वादनलोलुभस्य वन्दे गुरुं श्रीचरणारविन्दम् श्रीराधिकामाधवयोरपारा माधुर्यलीला गुणरूपणां तां प्रतिस्वनास्वादनलोलुभस्य वन्दे गुरुं श्रीचरणारविन्दम् निकुञ्जयो नोरधिकेलिसेद्यै यायालिभिरुक्ते अभिदेशनीया तत्रादितास्यादिवल्लभस्य वन्दे गुरुं श्रीचरणारविन्दम् निकुञ्जयो नोरधिकेलिसेद्यै यायालिभिरुक्ते निर्वेशनीया तत्रादितास्यादिवल्लभस्य वन्दे गुरुं श्रीचरणारविन्दम् रसस्त्रिवेण समसशास्त्रे युद्धसभाव्यादवेव सद्भि किन्तु प्रभोया प्रियवदस्य वन्दे गुरुं श्रीचरणारविन्दम् सशस्त्रिवेण समस्तशास्त्रे युद्धसभाव्यादवेव सद्भि किन्तु प्रभोया प्रियवदस्य वन्दे गुरुं श्रीचरणारविन्दम् यस्य प्रसादा भगवत्प्रसाद यस्य प्रसादां न कदिकुतोऽपि दायं दुन्दां दश यसरि सन्ध्यं वन्दे गुरुं श्रीचरणारविन्दम् यस्य प्रसादा भगवत्प्रसाद यस्य प्रसादां न कदिकुतोऽपि दायं दुन्दां दश यसरि सन्ध्यं वन्दे गुरुं श्रीचरणारविन्दम् 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 नमो ॐ विष्णुपदाय कृष्णप्रस्थाय भूतले श्रीमदे भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिन्निधि नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवी गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशधारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभो नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौरभक्तवृन्द जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभो नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासदि Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Shri Krishna Caitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Gurudeva, Jaya Gurudeva, Jaya Gurudeva, Jaya Gurudeva. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Nitya Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Nitya Gaura Hari Bol, Nitya Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Hari Bol, Nitya Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Hari Bol, 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 Hari Bol. हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जय, श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय, गुरु महाराज की जय, अनंत कोटि वैष्णव की जय, हिताय गौर प्रेमानंद हरि गिरि बोल, कृष्णार्पणम कृष्णार्पणम कृष्णार्पणम.
जय विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिवजर स्तोत्र श्री श्री अभय चरणारविंद भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी श्रीला प्रभुपाद की जय. इस्कॉन फाउंडर आचार्य बीवीटी फाउंडर आचार्य श्रीला प्रभुपाद की जय. जय विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिवजर स्तोत्र श्री श्री भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती महाराज प्रभुपाद की जय. नामाचार्य श्रीला हरिदास ठाकुर की जय. प्रेम से को श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद की जय. श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोविंद श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरी गोवर्धन की जय. श्री वृंदावन धाम की जय. श्री द्वारकापुरी धाम की जय. श्री जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की जय. मायापुर नवरी धाम की जय. श्री गंगा माई की जय. श्री यमुना माई की जय. श्री भक्ति देवी की जय. श्री सामवेद भक्त वृंद की जय. श्री हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जय. श्री हरिनाम संकीर्तन महायज्ञ की जय. ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय. श्री हरे कृष्ण महामंत्र की जय. All grace assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All grace assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All grace assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All grace are Guru Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga, Hare Krishna. All grace Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Jai Gaura Premanande, Hari Hari Bol.
Thank you, Prabhuji, for a wonderful and blissful Mangala Arati. Narsimhadev is the protector for all the devotees. Let us seek his blessings as we have Bhaktin Prajna singing the Narsimha Arati. Over to you, Bhaktin Prajna.
Krishna, सभी भक्तों को दंडवत प्रणाम। नमस्ते नरसिंहाय,
नमस्ते नरसिंहाय,
प्रह्लादलादायिने,
हिरण्यकशिपूर्वक्षः, श्रीलङ्कानखलाय, इतो नरसिंह परतो नरसिंह,
यतो यतो यामितो नरसिंहा,
यतो यतो यामि ततो नरसिंह,
बहिर् नरसिंह हृदये नरसिंह,
नरसिंह नरसिंहमदिं शरणं प्रपदे,
तव कर कमलवरे अद्भुत श्रृंगार, कालिता हिरण्यकशिपु तनुभृंगा, केशवदगा नरहरि रूपा, जय जगदीश हरे, जय जगदीश हरे, जय जगदीश हरे,
तव कर कमल बरे अद्भुत श्रृंगार, ललिता हिरण्यकशिपु तनुभृंगा, केशवदृता नरहरि रूप, जय जगदीश हरे, जय जगदीश हरे, जय जगदीश हरे,
जय नरसिंहदेव, जय नरसिंहदेव, जय नरसिंहदेव,
जय नरसिंहदेव, जय नरसिंहदेव, नरसिंहदेव जय नरसिंहदेव,
जय प्रहलाद महाराज, प्रहलाद महाराज, जय प्रहलाद महाराज, जय प्रहलाद महाराज,
जय प्रहलाद महाराज, जय प्रहलाद महाराज, प्रहलाद महाराज, जय प्रहलाद महाराज,
जय प्रभुपदा, जय प्रभुपदा, जय प्रभुपदा,
जय प्रभुपदा, जय प्रभुपदा, प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा,
जय गुरुदेवा, जय गुरुदेवा, जय गुरुदेवा, जय गुरुदेवा,
जय गुरुदेवा, जय गुरुदेवा, गुरुदेवा जय गुरुदेवा,
नित्य गौर हरि बोल, हरि बोल, नित्य गौर हरि बोल,
नित्य गौर हरि बोल, हरि बोल, हरि बोल, नित्य गौर हरि बोल,
उग्रं वीरं महाविष्णु ज्वलन्तं सर्वतोमुखं नरसिंहं भीषणं भद्रं मृत्योर्मृत्योर्नमाम्यहम्।
उग्रं वीरं महाविष्णु ज्वलन्तं सर्वतोमुखं नरसिंहं भीषणं भद्रं मृत्योर्मृत्योर्नमाम्यहम्।
उग्रं वीरं महाविष्णु ज्वलन्तं सर्वतोमुखं नरसिंहं भीषणं भद्रं मृत्योर्मृत्योर्नमाम्यहम्।
उग्रं वीरं महाविष्णुं ज्वलन्तं सर्वतोमुखं नरसिंहं भीषणं भद्रं मृत्युर्मृत्यु नमाम्यहम्
उग्रं वीरं महाविष्णु ज्वलन्तं सर्वतोमुखं नरसिंहं भीषणं भद्रं मृत्यो नमाम्यहम्
उग्रं वीरं महाविष्णुं ज्वलन्तं सर्वतोमुखं नरसिंहं भीषणं भद्रं मृत्युर्मृत्यु नमाम्यहम्
जय नरसिंह श्री नरसिंह जय जय नरसिंह प्रहलादीश जय पद्म मुख पद्म भृंग
जय नरसिंह श्री नरसिंह जय जय नरसिंह प्रहलादेश जय पद्म मुख पद्म
हरे कृष्णा सर्व विनाश नरसिंह देव भगवान की जय पत्ते शिरोमणि प्रहलाद महाराज की जय
Thank you, Bhaktin Prajna. It was a wonderful arti. Let us now offer our repeated obeisance unto Vrindai Srimati Tulsi Devi, who is very dear to Lord Sri Krishna. She bestows devotional service to Krishna and possesses the highest truth. We now have Her Grace Sri Rupa Mataji performing the Tulsi Arati. Over to you, Mataji.
वृंदाय तुलसीदेव्याय प्रियाय केशवस्य च विष्णु भक्ति प्रदे देवी सत्यवत्यै नमो नमः। वृंदाय तुलसीदेव्याय प्रियाय केशवस्य च विष्णु भक्ति प्रदे देवी सत्यवत्यै नमो नमः। वृंदाय तुलसीदेव्याय प्रियाय केशवस्य च विष्णु भक्ति प्रदे देवी सत्यवत्यै नमो नमः। नमो नमः तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमः तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमः। राधा कृष्ण सेवा प्रभो ए अभिलाषी राधा कृष्ण सेवा प्रभो ए अभिलाषी राधा कृष्ण सेवा प्रभो ए अभिलाषी नमो नमः तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमः। ये तुम्हारा शरण लय तारा वांछ पूर्ण हो जे तुम्हारा शरण लय तारा वांछ पूर्ण हो कृपा करी करो तारे वृंदावन वासी कृपा करी करो तारे वृंदावन वासी नमो नमः तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमः। मुराए अभिलाष विलास कुंज दियो वास मुराए अभिलाष विलास कुंज दियो वास नयन हरे वो सदा जुगल रूप राशि नयन हरे वो सदा जुगल रूप राशि नमो नमः तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमः। निवेदन धार सखीर अनुगत करो निवेदन धार सखीर अनुगत करो सेवाधिकार दिए koro nij dasi seva de kar diye koro nij dasi namo namah Tulasi Krishna Priyasi Namo Namah Dina Krishna Dase Koi Eje Namora Hoy Dina Krishna Dase Koi Eje Namora Hoy Shri Radha Govinda Preme Sada Jena Vasi Shri Radha Govinda Preme Sada Jena Vasi Namo Namah Tulasi Krishna Priyasi Namo Namah Yani kani cha papani Brahma hatyadikani cha Tani tani pranashyanti Pradakshina pade pade Yani kani cha papani Brahma hatyadikani cha Tani tani pranashyanti Pradakshina pade pade Yani kani chapapani Brahma hatyadikani cha Tani tani pranashyanti Pradakshina pade pade Yani kani chapapani Brahma hatyadikani cha Tani tani pranashyanti Pradakshina pade pade Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Vrinde Devi Jaya Vrinde Devi Jaya Vrinde Devi Jaya Vrinde Devi Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Vrinde Devi Jaya Vrinde Devi Jaya Vrinde Devi Jaya Vrinde Devi Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Vrinde Jaya Vrinde Jaya Vrinde Jaya Shri Vrinde Jaya Vrinde Jaya Vrinde Jaya Vrinde Jaya Shri Vrinde Vrindaya Tulsidevyaya Priyaya Kesavasya Vishnu Bhakti Devi Satyavatya Namo Namaha Vrindaya Tulsidevyaya Priyaya Kesavasya Vishnu Bhakti Devi Satyavatya Namo Namaha Vrindaya Tulsidevyaya Priyaya Kesavasya Vishnu Bhakti Devi Satyavatya Namo Namaha Shri Shri Vrinde Devi Tulsi Mahani Ki Jai Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai
Thank you, Radha Sakhi Mataji, for performing Tulsi Aarti and sung by Her Grace Sri Rupa Mataji. A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, Jai Srila Prabhupada, is 100% certain to be a pure devotee of Krishna and 100% qualified to guide us back home, back to Godhead. Therefore, we should take this rare opportunity of associating with pure devotees of Lord Krishna in the human form of life and make our life a success by accepting Srila Prabhupada as our spiritual master and actually surrendering to Him and serving Him, and by His mercy, we can easily cross over the ocean of miseries, which is the material world. May I now request His Grace Bhagwan Balaji Prabhu to sing Guru Aarti, and Guru Aarti performed by His Grace Swarna Gopal Prabhu. Over to you, Prabhuji.
Shiro Sharana Padma Kevala Bhakti Sadma Bandmoyi Samadana Mate Bandmoni Savadana Mate Jahara Prasade Pai He Baba Toriya Jahai He Guru He Baba Toriya Jahai Krishna Prapti Ho Jaha Hote Krishna Prapti Ho Jaha Hote Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chitete Chori Ho Akya Arana Chori Ho Mani Asha Arana Chori Ho Mani Asha Shri Guru Sharane Rati Aise Ukama Rati Shri Guru Sharane Rati Aise Ukama Rati Prasad Pure Sarva Asha Prasad Pure Sarva Asha चक्कुदान दिलो जे जन्ने जन्ने प्रभु से चक्कुदान दिलो जे जन्ने जन्ने प्रभु से दिव्य ज्ञान हृदय प्रकाशितो प्रेम भक्ति जहाँ होते अविद्या विनाशा जाते प्रेम भक्ति जहाँ होते अविद्या विनाशा जाते निर्गाय जारदरितो श्री गुरु करुणा सिंधु आगम जनार बंदो श्री गुरु करुणा सिंधु आगम जनार लोकना दुखेरा जीवाना आहा प्रभु कोरो दोया दे हमारे पद शय आहा प्रभु कोरो दोया दे हमारे पद हे मेरा त्रिभुवाना शीला प्रभुपादा पवाना जय प्रभुपादा 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 नमायो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रष्टाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी आशक्यानिशकारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada.
जय विष्णुपाद स्तोत्र श्री श्री अभय चरणारविंद भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी शिला प्रभुपाद की जय इस्कॉन फाउंडर राजरे ब्यूटीफुल राजरे शिला प्रभुपाद की जय जय विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिवजर स्तोत्र श्री श्री भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती महाराज प्रभुपाद की जय रामाचार्य शिला हरिदास ठाकुर की जय प्रेम सको श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद की जय श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपन श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरि गोवर्धन की जय श्री वृंदावन धाम की जय श्री द्वारकापुरी धाम की जय श्री जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की जय श्री मायापुर नवदीप धाम की जय श्री गंगा माई की जय श्री यमुना माई की जय श्री भक्ति देवी की जय श्री तुलसी महारानी की जय श्री वृंदे देवी तुलसी महारानी की जय सामवेद भक्त वृंद के श्री हरनाम संकीर्तन की जय श्री हरनाम संकीर्तन महायज्ञ की जय ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय श्री हरे कृष्ण महामंत्र की जय All Gurus assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. 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 All Gurus Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga, Hare Krishna. All Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaura Premanande, Hare Hare Bol, Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji, for such a blissful arati. It is recommended that such a chanting be performed very loudly. In Srimad Bhagavatam, Narada Muni says that without shame, he began traveling all over the world, chanting the holy name of the Lord. Similarly, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu has advised a devotee can be very peacefully chant the holy name of the Lord by behaving more humbly than the grass, be tolerant like a tree, offering respect to everyone without expecting honor from anyone else. Such a qualification makes it easier to chant the holy name of the Lord. Let me invite Bhakta Deepak Prabhu to lead the chanting. Over to you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Danvat Pranams all. Prabhu, am I audible?
Yes, Prabhu.
Thank you. The 10 offenses to the holy name. To blaspheme the devotees who have dedicated their lives to propagating the holy name of the Lord. To consider the names of demigods like Lord Shiva or Lord Brahma to be equal to or independent of the name of the Lord Vishnu. To disobey the orders of the spiritual master. To blaspheme the Vedic scriptures or scriptures in pursuance to the Vedic worship. To consider the glories of chanting Hare Krishna to be an imagination, to give some interpretations to the holy name of the Lord, to commit sinful activities on the strength of the holy name, to consider the chanting of Hare Krishna as one of the auspicious ritualistic activities which are offered in the Vedas as fruitive activities, karma kanda, to instruct a faithless person about the glories of the holy name, to not have complete faith in the chanting of the holy name, and to maintain material attachments even after understanding so many instructions on this matter. It is also an offense to be inattentive while chanting. Every devotee who claims to be a Vaishnava must guard against these offenses in order to quickly achieve the desired success. Krishna Prema. Let us offer our humble obeisances to all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord who are just like desired trees, who can fulfill all desires and are full of compassion for the fallen conditioned souls. वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्यैव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिन्निति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे हरे, हरे राम राम हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे हरे, हरे राम राम हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Devak Joshi Prabhu, can you tell Prabhu join? Maybe another few minutes. Is it okay? Continue your chanting.
Yes, Prabhu.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu. Prabhu is yet to join. It takes maybe another 5-10 minutes. Actually, I don't know. Krishna Mohini, meantime, we can do the Kirtan.
Yes, Hare Krishna Prabhu. I will
Please.
do that.
Okay, thank you. There is no volume.
Is it audible now, Prabhu?
Yes.
Translation. Hare, obeisances to the Lord. Hare unto Krishna and Yadava. Obeisances to the Lord of the Yadus, Madhava, Keshava.
Gopala, Govinda, Rama, O vanquisher of Madhu, Giridhari, Lord of Gopis, bewilderer of Cupid.
Sri Caitanya, Nityananda, Sri Advaita Sita, Hari, Guru, Vaishnavas, Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita.
All glories to Srila Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami and Raghunatha Bhatta Goswami, to Srila Jiva Goswami, Gopala Bhatta Goswami and Raghunatha Dasa Goswami. I bow to the feet of these 6 Goswamis. By their grace, our obstacles can be destroyed and all desires are fulfilled.
I am the servant of the 6 Goswamis. The dust of their lotus feet is my 5-fold subsistence.
To be a servant of their lotus feet and to reside.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Mohini.
This is my aspiration.
Yes, Prabhu.
Yeah, Prabhu joined. We will do the Kirtan after the class.
Okay.
Thank you. Hare Krishna, thank you so much to all the devotees for joining. Today we are very fortunate to have with us His Grace Achintya Caitanya Prabhu from Sridham Mayapur. Prabhu was brought up in Bangalore and took to Krishna consciousness in the year 1990 at the age 17. He was keen to pursue his higher education and went to the universities to study a bachelor's course in physics and then a master's course in astrophysics. Prabhu was initiated by His Holiness Jayapataka Swami Maharaj in the year 1994. He has a keen interest in the philosophy of Krishna consciousness and was a student under Srila Gopi Paranamthana Prabhu from 2004 till 2011. He moved to Sridham Mayapur in 2006 with his wife, Her Grace Shiromani Devi Dasi Mataji, a medical doctor by profession who gave up her American green card to reside in Sridham Mayapur. They have two sons. One is Madhav, age 10, and Achyuta, age 4. Prabhu was in Mayapur till date, has served as the executive secretary to Srila Jayapataka Swami Maharaj, being tasked with the responsibility of overseeing the secretarial office. So we are very fortunate. Thank you, Prabhuji, for joining. His Grace Achintya Caitanya Prabhu ki jai. His Holiness Jayapataka Swami Maharaj ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thai Gaura Premanande. Hari Hari Bol. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you so much for joining.
Apologies for joining slightly late because I have to take my kids for Darshanarati. And it's not easy once you take them to bring quickly. So kirtans are going on, and so I'm apologetic that I could not get back exactly on time for this class.
No issues, Prabhu.
Okay, so Prabhu, could you, put the verse on this,
Yes,
share the
yes.
screen, and
Yeah,
could
on
someone
this.
read the verse?
Dadasaki Mataji.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Yat Shraddhaya Shruttavyatya cha Bhaktya Samrijyamane Hridaye Vyadhaya Jnanena Vairagya Bhalena Dhira Vrajema Tattengri Sarojapitam. Should I read the translation, Prabhu?
Prabhu, you are muted.
Oh, yes, Mataji, please go ahead because I'm using a mobile phone. So it's difficult for me to read from this small screen. Yeah, go ahead.
Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Jai Srila Prabhupada. Simply by hearing about your lotus feet with eagerness and devotion, and by meditating upon them with the heart, one at once becomes enlightened with knowledge, and on the strength of detachment, one becomes pacified. We must therefore take shelter of the sanctuary of your lotus feet. Purport: the miracles of meditating on the lotus feet of the Lord with eagerness and devotion are so great that no other process can compare to it. The minds of materialistic persons are so disturbed that it is almost impossible for them to search after the supreme truth by personal regulative endeavors. But even such materialistic men with a little eagerness for hearing about the transcendental name, fame, qualities, etc., can surpass all other methods of attaining knowledge and detachment. The conditioned soul is attached to the bodily conception of life, and therefore he is in ignorance. Culture of self-knowledge can bring about detachment from material affection, and without such detachment, there is no meaning to knowledge. The most stubborn attachment for material enjoyment is sex life. One who is attached to sex life is to be understood as devoid of knowledge. Knowledge must be followed by detachment. That is the way of self-realization. These two essentials for self-realization, knowledge and detachment, become manifest very quickly if one performs devotional service to the lotus feet of the Lord. The word dhira is very significant in this connection. A person who is not disturbed even in the presence of cause of disturbance is called dhira. Sri Yamunacharya says, since my heart has been overwhelmed by the devotional service of Lord Krishna, I cannot even think of sex life, and if thoughts of sex life come upon me, I at once feel disgust. Unquote. A devotee of the Lord becomes an elevated dhira by the simple process of meditating in eagerness on the lotus feet of the Lord. Devotional service entails being initiated by a bona fide spiritual master and following his instruction in regard to hearing about the Lord. Such a bona fide spiritual master is accepted by regularly hearing from him about the Lord. The improvement in knowledge and detachment can be perceived by devotees as an actual experience. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu strongly recommended this process of hearing from a bona fide devotee, and by following this process, one can achieve the highest result, conquering all other methods. Hare Krishna.
Very much. Om Ajnanatimidandasya Gyananjanashlakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Shasirupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahaganalita Shri Vishakan Vitam Namam Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshthaya Bhutale Srimate Jayapataka Swaminiti Namine Nama Acharya Padaya Nitai Kripa Pradayine Gaurakata Dhamadaya Nagaragramatarine Namam Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshthaya Bhutale Srimate Gopi Paranadhanadase Tinamine Namam Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Prachar we have a very unusual situation because the Wi-Fi never goes off in Mayapur, but somehow, just as I was reciting the prayers, the Wi-Fi is off. So I'm speaking from my mobile connection. Is me? Hare Krishna? Can
Yes, Prabhu. Now we can hear.
you can hear, right? Okay. All right. Namam Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshthaya Bhutale Srimate Jayapataka Swaminiti Namine Namacharya Padaya Nitai Kripa Pradayine Gaurakata Damadaya Nagaragramatarine Namam Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshthaya Bhutale Srimate Gopi Paranadhanadase Iti Namine Namam Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Paritanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavyo Namo Namah Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayati Girim Yatkripatamaham Bande Shri Gurudataridam Yatkripatamaham Bande Paramanandamadam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram Katanchana Smrite Yasmin Dushkaram Sakaram Bhavet Vismrite Viparitam Syat Shri Chaitanyam Namamitam. So this is a very beautiful verse and a very beautiful purport by Srila Prabhupada. It speaks about eagerness to practice bhakti, specifically eagerness to meditate on the lotus feet of the Lord. Prabhupada elsewhere in the Bhagavatam says, when it is explained that we should take shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord, it means that we should take shelter of the lotus feet of the devotees. To take shelter of the lotus feet of the devotees. So this is, Prabhupada explains this nicely in the Bhagavatam. The meaning in the first canto, the meaning of taking shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord means taking shelter of the lotus feet of the devotees. So when we say taking shelter of the lotus feet of the devotees, what does it mean? We take shelter of the lotus feet of the devotees through their instructions. And of course, we can also normally we are not allowed to do anything for ourselves in Bhakti. We would do only things for Krishna, correct? But there is one activity that we can do for ourselves in Bhakti, which is we can take the dust from the lotus feet of the great devotees and do abhishek for ourselves. Usually you do abhishek to the deities, right? And you do, you glorify others. You do, but here is one opportunity where we can do abhishek for ourselves. So that is doing abhishek in the dust of the lotus feet of the devotees. That's one way, and the water which has washed the lotus feet. However, Prabhupada explains that more than the physical association of the spiritual master, the Vani of the spiritual master is more important. So the most important thing that we can get from the spiritual master, or in our particular case, the most confidential thing, the most important thing we can get from our founder Acharya, Srila Prabhupada, is his mood and as reflected in his teachings. So therefore, we have to take shelter of the books. During Srila Prabhupada's personal presence, you may have, those of you who have read the Leelamrita and other books may have noticed that there was an explosion of Krishna consciousness. In fact, that is the name of a book by Hayagriva Prabhu called the Hare Krishna Explosion. So that is the effect that a pure devotee has. He creates an explosion of Krishna consciousness. So when we come in touch with such a great devotee, then because he has so much eagerness to serve Krishna, we get infected by that eagerness. So the root cause for all our auspiciousness and Krishna consciousness comes from taking shelter of Srila Prabhupada's books. So if we can take shelter of Prabhupada's books in a wholehearted manner, then all auspiciousness can come from that. Specifically, it is explained that in Kali Yuga, this Bhagavata Purana, it is explained, Krishna Swadhamopagate Dharma Jnana Divihisaha Kalau Nashtam Drishamesha Purana Orko Adunoditaha. So Krishna left with Dharma and Jnana. So those who have lost their vision due to the dense darkness of this Kali Yuga shall find light from this Purana. So this Purana is as brilliant as the sun. So the entire practice of bhakti that we perform is based on Srimad Bhagavatam. Our philosophy is explained by our acharyas in very simple terms. What is our philosophy? Aradhya Bhagavan Brajesha Tanayas Taddama Vrindavanam Ramya Kachi Dashesha Vrajavadu Vargena Kalpita Srimad Bhagavatam Pramanamamalam Prema Pumarto Mahan Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, which means that we worship Krishna. Which Krishna? There are many Krishnas. Krishna, who is the son of Yashoda and Nanda. Where does he live? In Vrindavan Dham. And what is the proof? What is our proof for this? It is Srimad Bhagavatam. So that is why for the Gaudiya Vaishnavas, if they ask the Gaudiya Vaishnava, what is your scripture? We say, our scripture is Srimad Bhagavatam. So, and that is especially meant for Kali Yuga. So therefore, all our auspiciousness begins by taking shelter of Srimad Bhagavatam. So when we read the Srimad Bhagavatam with the purports of Srila Prabhupada, then what happens is Prabhupada explains that these purports are his personal ecstasies. So Prabhupada had a certain intensity. Prabhupada had a certain eagerness to practice, and of course he's a Nitya Siddha, but Nitya Siddhas also practice, not Sadhana Bhakti, but they are Prema Bhakti. So they have a certain amount of eagerness. So that eagerness gets transmitted when we come in touch with the Bhaktivedanta purports. Previously, when Srila Prabhupada is personally present on the planet, just by seeing him, just by being in his presence, that opportunity was available to become eager just by seeing him, just by hearing him. Now, we have to consciously make that effort. It is not as easily available as it was during a physical presence. That's all. But it's available. The question is whether it's available or not. It's not a question of whether it is easy or not. As much was available during his personal presence is also available now. So this is very important, that we should not think, oh, during Prabhupada's time, there is a Hare Krishna explosion. A lot of things happen. But now it's different. We have to be more realistic or more practical. No. The same kind of eagerness that is present during Srila Prabhupada's time is also present now. That opportunity is there with us now. So, and how do we take full advantage of that opportunity? By taking shelter of the Bhaktivedanta purports. So that's very important, that we have to take shelter of the Bhaktivedanta purports. And then what happens? All auspiciousness will start. The moment we take shelter of the Bhaktivedanta purports, then all auspiciousness will start. Can you just give me 1 second? Sorry, my kids were fighting a bit, so I need to ask them to close the door. Okay, so yeah, so all that eagerness comes from reading Srimad. I mean, everything begins with that. The moment we hear from Srila Prabhupada through his Bhaktivedanta purports, then immediately there arises in our heart a certain eagerness, a certain urgency, a certain intensity to take up to the practice of Krishna consciousness. Therefore, sometimes devotees think that, oh, our process is the Harinam Sankirtan. So our main thing is chanting. I would always tell them the main thing is main thing is reading first, because all of us may be chanting, yeah, but we may all have different conceptions of Krishna consciousness. We need to have the proper, pure devotional conception. Otherwise, the chanting will not produce the effect of love of Godhead. That is why it is said that where we have, like, for example, we have the 10 offenses. What is the first offense? The first offense is to consider blaspheme the devotees, or blaspheme the Vaishnava offense is considered as the first offense. But unless we read the books, how are we going to understand the value of a Vaishnava? So obviously, we are definitely going to commit some blasphemy of the devotees. The second offense is to consider the names of demigods like Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva to be equal to or independent. How do we know that they are not equal or independent? We can know that they are not equal or independent by reading. So therefore, if we look at even to chant offenselessly, the chanting is not going to attain, they're not going to attain love of God by chanting 16 rounds. Prabhupada very clearly says it. Chant 16 rounds offenselessly. So to chant 16 rounds offenselessly, we have to have Bhagavad Vidya. Therefore, Sharam Bhattacharya, when he glorifies Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he says, Vairagya Vidya Nija Bhakti Yoga, Sikshate Veka Purusha Purana, Sri Krishna Chaitanya Shariradari, Kripam Budir, thus Yamaham, Kripam Budir, yes, Tamaham Prapadye, which means that Lord Chaitanya came to give us 3 things. What are those 3 things? How to practice bhakti, and how do you practice bhakti? Through Nija Bhakti Yoga. What is it? Vairagya Vidya Nija Bhakti Yoga. So Vairagya Vidya Nija Bhakti Yoga. So if you look at that, the Nija Bhakti Yoga can be practiced properly with Vidya. Without Vidya, you cannot practice Bhakti Yoga properly. And with Vidya, when you practice Bhakti Yoga properly, Prabhupada is explaining here very clearly that what happens, knowledge and detachment. What is that knowledge that Prabhupada is referring to? He is not referring to knowledge which is information. When Prabhupada speaks about knowledge here, he is talking about experience. That is what Prabhupada is talking about here. When he speaks about knowledge, he's talking about experience. And then he says knowledge, that experience produces what? It produces detachment. So knowledge in the Vaishnava tradition always refers to experience. It is not just some information. Even an academic scholar can read the whole Bhagavatam, which they do in different universities. But can we call them knowledgeable? No. So we cannot call them knowledgeable. Knowledgeable means to have experience of the knowledge. That is called experience of the information that you're getting. If you have experience of the information that you're getting, that is called knowledge in the Vedic circles. So it produces knowledge and detachment. So their experience, it's there in the Bhagavatam. Again, in the 11th canto, there is this verse, Bhakti Paresha Anubhava Virakti Ranyata, which means that when we practice Bhakti, what is the effect of practicing Bhakti? The example is given of having nice food. So nice food, what it produces pleasure, it produces nourishment, and it produces and it destroys hunger. So when someone is hungry and one eats, three things happen. What are the three things which happen? One feels pleasure, one feels nourished, and one's hunger goes away. So Prabhupada in one lecture explains that by practicing bhakti, if we are not experiencing these three things, especially if there's no detachment, from Maya, that means, Prabhupada says, it looks like there's some worms in the stomach when we eat. I mean, if it is not mitigating hunger, Prabhupada is saying there's some worms in the stomach. So like that, by practicing bhakti, we should be able to feel pleasurable, we should be able to feel nourishment, and we should be able to develop detachment from all material affairs. We should be able to see all material affairs as disgusting. For example, Prabhupada is talking about sex pleasure here, which is talked about. People write novels, the billboards, the advertisements, everything, movies, whatever you call it, it's all about sex life. And for a Vaishnava, he thinks this is disgusting pleasure, just disgusting. This is a Vaishnava. So we have to come to that kind of a platform. So the point is that the practice of bhakti should produce such a beautiful experience of pleasure and nourishment that one spits at the thought of sense pleasures or affairs of this material world. When I say sense pleasures, I mean both gross and subtle. So if you actually look at the ninth chapter, 2nd verse of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Rajavidya Rajaguhyam Susukam Kartum Avayam Pratyakshavagamam Dharmyam. Now, this is a very important thing because Krishna says Rajavidya. This is the king of all knowledge. Then what does he say? Pratyakshavagamam Dharmyam. Now, this word Pratyaksha in Vedic parlance, that word Pratyaksha is used for direct perception. Like for example, in science, Prabhupada also often used to say Pratyaksha, Anumana, Shabda. Pratyaksha means direct observation, direct experience. So Krishna says that this Krishna conscious process is not only Vidya means which is experience. Pratyakshaavagamam dharmyam. You can directly experience. Dharma which is experienced is bhakti. It is not just somebody is telling us, don't do this, don't. It's not a set of do's and don'ts. It is not. Rather, it is susukam kartumayam, that activity which is pleasurably performed and by which we can experience dharma. That is the whole point. So we are not trying to impose, especially yesterday there were a group of young kids who came home. So when I was talking to them, some of them, they had this idea that all these elders, elders in Krishna consciousness, they just try to impose different things. Do this, don't do this. But they have no idea why they should do it or why they don't do it. They just say, okay, this is good for you. But the very important aspect of our teaching our younger generation children is they should be able to get that experience of bhakti. Not just we say, okay, this is the right thing to do, this is the wrong thing to do. It doesn't work like that. They have to have that experience of Krishna consciousness. So we should be, first of all, ideal ourselves, and we should walk our talk. So we can't I mean, especially in the modern times, children, the world in general is very, very sharp. You cannot, there's a high standard of accountability that is demanded of spiritual practitioners. So we have to be conscious of the fact that we should first of all experience this, and we should be transmitting the experience of that happiness. Now, when I say happiness, I did say that the Prabhupada repeatedly says the detachment is the real test, whether you're advancing or not. Because happiness in Krishna consciousness can even be happiness about hearing about Krishna. If you go to Vrindavan during Kartik especially, you have these Bhagavata Saptahas. In the Bhagavata Saptahas, the speakers, they speak in such a manner that the audience are in tears. They experience something, right? You cannot deny they're experiencing something. But what kind of an experience is that? Prabhupada says, after they finish the Bhagavata Saptaha, once they go home, they'll think, oh, I've taken a break for 1 week. So let me go back to eating meat or this. So therefore, although they felt some pleasure, the pleasure alone is not the confirmation of advancement. One should feel pleasure. At the same time, one should feel disgust for material affairs. When these two things simultaneously exist, then we can say that we are practicing rightly situated on the path of bhakti. Therefore, Prabhupada says, no one needs to give you a certificate about Krishna consciousness. You can experience it yourself. Nobody needs to tell you where you are. You can know it. How much attraction am I feeling for Krishna? And how much detachment am I feeling from matter? So both of these things have to be simultaneously present. So this is the beauty of Krishna consciousness. For example, now we had this coronavirus pandemic. So what are we supposed to be showing? What is the example that we are supposed to show to the world? What is the example we're supposed to show to the world? Is the example that we are taking tight shelter at the lotus feet of the Lord? Is that the example that we're supposed to show? Fine. But if the materialist people, they are turning towards the scientists and vaccines or whatever they're turning to, due to what? They are driven by fear. They are driven by fear. So when they look at the devotees, if they also see that these people are also driven by fear, but they're taking shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord, that's fine. That's fine. It is better to take shelter of the lotus feet of the devotees or lotus feet of the Lord than not take shelter of the lotus feet. That's fine. But is that what we are supposed to demonstrate to the world? They are also fearful. We are also fearful. What is the difference between them and us then? The very practice of Krishna consciousness is meant to make us fearless. That is the whole point. We take shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord so that we remain steady in our Krishna consciousness and we progress and we give Krishna consciousness to others. We are not meant to be taking shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord out of fear. Of course, if someone is having that fear, what can be done? But one should remember that this is not a very high state of Krishna consciousness. What is the difference between the karmis and us? If they are fearful and we are also fearful. The practice of Krishna consciousness is supposed to induce fearlessness in us. Of course, fearlessness again does not mean stupidity. Does not mean stupidity. I'm not saying that devotees should not have worn masks or done other things which are precautionary. That's fine. This body is Krishna's. We need to take some precaution. There's a difference between precaution and fear. All precautions need not be taken out of fear. Precautions can be taken due to sanity. All precautions need not have to be driven by fear. So this is what we're supposed to demonstrate to the world. If we're supposed to demonstrate fearlessness to the world, we need to have that experience of Krishna consciousness. It is Krishna consciousness which makes us fearful. So, fearless. So therefore, everything in Krishna consciousness has to be, as Prabhupada is saying, we have to be able to demonstrate the knowledge and detachment. Knowledge means the experience. That's what he means. So when Krishna says, Dukkalayam ashashvatam, do we really think that this place is a place filled with miseries? Or do we think there could be a little bit of happiness is there? It's not that there's no happiness. Krishna is saying there's no happiness. Do we think there's a little bit of happiness? Then we're wrong. So the point is that how much aligned are we with Krishna's teachings? How much aligned are we? This is what Prabhupada came to teach us. He was so strong. He did not give even a little bit of leeway to consider anything material to be significant. Not even an inch of leeway he gave. He was very clear. Spiritual life is fully useful. Material things are useless. Now, I'm not saying about dovetailing. I'm just talking about material things by themselves have no value. We have to, as long as we do not engage things in Krishna's service, it is useless. So this is what Prabhupada came to teach us. This is Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's teachings also. And this is the standard of pure devotional service. So the point is that everything looks good if we can develop that eagerness, right? When we have eagerness, then nothing really matters. Nothing really matters. That eagerness we can attain only from the Mahabhagavatas, the great souls. So our endeavor to attain that eagerness should begin with a study of Srila Prabhupada's books every day. Every day. There should not be a single day where we miss reading these books. Reading his books means associating with him personally. So obviously, we're going to get infected with Srila Prabhupada's eagerness, and we'll stay aligned with his mood and his balance and his emphasis. All these things will remain fully aligned. And once we are fully aligned, where is the question of misery? Where is the question of fearfulness? Where is the question of all these things? So this should be our focus, that everything begins with taking shelter of the books. When we take shelter of the books, then Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to give us three things. We take shelter of the books, then we're able to practice Bhakti Yoga properly. And when we practice Bhakti Yoga properly, obviously the result would be, the test, as Prabhupada says, would be Vairagya. So this is the way in which we have to practice Krishna consciousness. So in this purport, Prabhupada is concluding this purport by saying, Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu strongly recommended this process of hearing from a bona fide devotee, and by following this process, one can achieve the highest result, conquering all other methods. So look at this. Look at the last sentence. It very clearly means it can achieve the highest result, conquering all other methods, which means you simply have to be dedicated to reading the books and hearing from those who are explaining the books. That's also important, not that we just sit at home and read. We have to also hear from those who are explaining these books. For example, we organized a class now. That's very nice, because you're supposed to hear from different devotees explaining these Bhagavatam verses. And we're supposed to inquire from them, render service, and progress like that in Krishna consciousness. So Prabhupada's books are the basis. Then we have our spiritual masters, our superiors, and other Vaishnavas. We need to hear from them how they're explaining the Bhagavatam. Okay, so I'll stop there, because Prabhupada never gave a class more than 30 minutes or 40 minutes. And once when someone is giving a very long talk, Prabhupada said, why is he talking so long? So I always try to limit my classes to 30 minutes to 40 minutes, 45 minutes, maximum 50 minutes, not more. Okay, so I think I'll stop here. If there are any comments or questions, we can take them. Till what time is this class? Another 10 minutes? Sriranga Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhu.
Okay.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhu. Yeah.
If anyone has...
Yeah. Yes, ma'am. They ask directly, or they're supposed to raise their hand? How does it work? I don't know how you all do it. You can
No,
go ahead.
actually, I will ask the devotees. If there is any questions, please unmute yourself and you can ask the questions to Prabhu.
Purna Gopal Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Puji, Dandavats Pranams.
Yes,
very short and sweet, very enlightening lecture, Prabhu. So nice, very enlivening. I have a kind question that you are telling that we should not impose Krishna consciousness on children. But my question, please correct me, Prabhu. This outside, within the Krishna conscious family itself, we find difficult to practice Krishna consciousness. Since the children are engaged, they are associated with this karmic people. They are more engrossed with the material activities. So if you don't impose them on Krishna consciousness, if you don't force them to practice Krishna consciousness, how we can expect they will come to Krishna consciousness?
Very good question. You see, Prabhupada wrote several letters, and okay, I'll give you a simple example. Okay, like for example, I didn't mind being late to this class because I have to ensure that children, when they're interested to do something, we have to give them that opportunity. Like my children are very enthusiastic to go to Darshanarthi. I have to ensure that I don't cut that short by saying that I've got some work to do, because there's some enjoyment which is giving them some pleasure. So we should seek out those things which give the children happiness. Like Prabhupada would say, do not force children to chant japa. That is one instruction which Prabhupada explicitly given. Do not force them to chant japa. Engage them in other activities like kirtan or whatever. If they like to chant, fine. But they should feel encouraged to chant. And throughout his instructions to children about how we should raise children, he's very clear. He says, our Krishna consciousness is a voluntary process. So do not try to impose anything on the children. Try to show them how it is nice. And children by nature, they like to sing, dance, all these things when they're young, especially, So that's a very important thing, that we should see what is it that interests them and try to encourage them rather than telling them, you're supposed to do this, you're supposed to do that. They're hearing anyway enough classes. It's not that, they would have heard enough about the philosophy if they're a little bit grown up, I'm just saying. So what they're really looking for is that they have to be able to see that the society of devotees are very different from the society of non-devotees. This is a very important factor. If in our society of devotees also we behave in a manner that is unbefitting a devotee, like political things, this problem, that problem, and of course, problems will be there everywhere, but it all depends on what is our attitude towards things, Like quite often, children are very inquisitive. You cannot chill a child. You are not allowed to ask this question. Keep quiet. But these are things which are very discouraging children. You should never discourage a child when they're asking a question. And not only, you are not only are you supposed to not discourage, but you have to consider the question to be important, because they're asking a question. It is an important thing. They're asking a question. So why not answer the question in a manner that they are convinced? Because children are intelligent. They'll be able to see whether the answer is genuine or not. Sometimes I remember when I was teaching at I was teaching at the international school. So once I was talking something, and then one girl in the class, this was a high school class, she said, it's nice that you're talking these things, but we need to see that everything is fitting together well. I said, what exactly do you mean? So then she said, this is some 15 years ago, So she said, look, last evening we were going to the temple, on the way at the park, we saw this teacher, this male teacher, and another female teacher sitting together and chilling out, So then she said, where is our philosophy? So the point is that it's not enough for children to just hear the philosophy and say, suppose you tell them. So when she asked this question, I very clearly said, yes, what they're doing is completely wrong. I'm not supposed to tell them that, oh, they are devotees, they're chanting. If you give these kind of answers, children are not going to accept it. They have to be shown right is right, wrong is wrong, no matter who's doing it. If we try to cover up things in the name of respect and this and that and all these things, we have to be straightforward. Yes, they may be practicing devotees, but what they're doing is wrong. Simple. So we hope that by their practice, they will improve. That's all. But no justification of anything which is wrong, no justification of anything which is political. No, we should not act in a manner which shows us to be biased, which shows us to have some interest. Or sometimes devotees think, if I tell the truth, maybe I'll lose this opportunity for service. So if they see that devotees do not have that faith, that ultimately Krishna is the one who gives me service. It's not that I have to try to please some devotee who's behaving wrongly and go ahead with that wrong behavior so that I get some service. Children can see all these different things and they're very, very sharp. So we have to be very conscious that Prabhupada said Caesar's wife should be above suspicion. So for children, parents should be above suspicion. They should not see that parents are themselves compromised in their practice, then we have lost it. That is the first level. So when they see the parents are ideal, they will feel encouraged to at least try, explore. But the moment they see parents are compromised, finished.
Thank you, bro. Thank you for enlightening me. Hare Krishna.
Any other questions?
Radhasaki Mate has nicely summarized some things in the chat. Thank you, Mataji, for doing that.
Any more questions? Any doubts?
Hare Krishna,
You
Prabhuji.
Yeah, yes, Prabhuji. Go ahead.
Prabhuji, whenever you go for these classes, it's been like we always tend to hear that the materialistic world is something not a good place. Obviously, it has all the demerits, but whenever we try to tame our mind and try to say this is like in a denial mode, that is where the attraction becomes more. So how
say that again, bro? Say it again.
Prabhuji, like whenever we are trying to go in the denial mode in terms of saying that the materialistic world is a place of misery, so the attraction towards the materialistic world becomes more and more. So how do we tame ourselves? Because even if you are doing so many chant, like it's difficult because when you are in that mode, you are not able to come out of it because you are engrossed in it because of some obligations or something is that which. So how do we?
It's a very good question. It's a very relevant question. See, when we speak about detachment, it's good to hear that, okay, the material world is not a place of misery. Sorry, it's not a place of enjoyment. It's a place of misery, but it doesn't really ring a bell unless you have some experience of it, right? So until you have some experience that Krishna consciousness is so wonderful that these things are not, see, first of all, it is not that people do not experience some happiness in this world. People do experience, not that they don't experience. The only thing is, it is okay. Let me just distinguish between the two types of happiness. There is happiness in this material world, but what kind of happiness is it? Like for example, Prabhupada gives the example. Like suppose you're dreaming, or let me give you a simple example. You're watching a movie. So if you're watching, of course, devotees don't watch movies. I'm just giving an example. So if you're watching a movie, then when the hero is vulnerable, suddenly you feel vulnerable. When the hero is happy, you're also happy. So you're going through a whole series of experiences. When you're watching the movie, you're going through a whole series of experiences because you're identifying with the character. You're identifying with the hero. So then his happiness becomes your happiness. His miseries become your misery. So, and these are real, right? You're experiencing it, no? How can we say we're not doing it? We're experiencing it. But once the movie is over, then you plug out of it and you're in the real world. Now, what you experience in the real world is your real experience. It is not the other one is not, it's a meaningful experience. It's not the other one is not real. It is real only. But it's an identifying experience. And this is a real experience. Take, for example, food. This will be very simple to understand. You may feel some pleasure seeing some nice food in the movie. But when you actually get that food, that's much more pleasurable than that identifying pleasure, right? So when it says there's no pleasure in this material world, it means that there is no real pleasure. There is identifying pleasure. Definitely. That's why people are hooked onto this world. There are various forms of identifying pleasure. Sex pleasure, intoxication, food. There are various forms of identifying pleasure. It's not that there is no pleasure. So when it says there is no pleasure, it simply means there is no actual pleasure. They said soul is not getting what it's meant to get. Like how when you get out of the movies, your real food and all that. That the soul is not getting. So when it says it is a place of misery, when you're not getting what you're supposed to be getting, it's very artificial. It is in that sense. So what happens is when we experience the pleasure of Krishna consciousness, then this pleasure that we are getting appears insignificant. Just like, for example, all of us may have had this experience that when we have dreamt of so many things, right? Of course, some nightmares, also good things we have dreamt of. But as we progress in life, how much do we value that experience? Although during the time of the dream, we may have had some pleasure or whatever. But in real life, yeah, we know we had a dream once like this. So what? It's like, so that is what happens by practice of bhakti. That when we practice bhakti, it should become insignificant like that. That is the test Prabhupada says, that these things will appear insignificant. But this does not happen overnight. It is a gradual process. So as one progresses more and more, this becomes lesser and lesser and lesser. One cannot just think of it and attain it. It's not possible. One cannot think, oh, I'm supposed to be not attached to this, that. It doesn't work like that. It is not like a sadhana bhakti process where it's not a sadhana to keep on thinking, I should be detached from this, I should be detached from this. That's not what it is. That's not how it works. Rather, our process is, for us, in fact, the very concept of detachment itself is misunderstood sometimes in our movement. For us, detachment is not, okay, let me put it the other way around. I had a student when I was teaching in the international school here, Mayapur. So she was the, okay, I should not identify, okay, but she was a very good student. And in her final, maybe she doesn't mind also. Anyway, but in her final exam in 12th standard, although she was a very bright student, she would get A star and things like that. But in the final exam, she only got an A. Whereas the other students got A star and all that. So I asked her, what happened to you? Because throughout all your tests and all that, you were doing very well. So she said, because Cambridge is very different from CBSE and ICSE. You need to have presence of mind, because almost like an open book test. Nothing is going to be repeated from any of the past papers. Every question will be unique. You'll not find that anywhere else, and it spans many chapters. So the most critical thing in a Cambridge examination is presence of mind. And that time, if you're tense, you're finished. You will not be able to do it properly. So she said, I was very, very attached to being the topper. Because I was attached to being the topper, I was anxious. And because I was anxious, I couldn't do it properly. So if she was not attached, like the other students were not so attached, they could do well. So this is the idea of our when we say detached, we are not saying that we are disconnecting from the object. That's not what we mean. We are not thinking of, we are not anymore thinking of that object in terms of our own gratification. So when we say in family life, we have to be detached, what does it mean? It means we forget about the wife, forget about the children. That's not what it means. Detached means you're not thinking anymore, how shall my wife serve me? How shall my sons serve me? How shall I get enjoyment from these people? That's not what you're thinking. That is called attachment. Detachment means these people have been entrusted to me by Krishna. They're serving me out of their whatever they're doing. My wife is serving me. They're all. So I should feel that how shall I make them Krishna conscious? So my attachment is not about, attachment means how are they going to serve me, or how I can get this happiness from them, that is called attachment. Detachment means one is not expecting all these things from them. One is willing to give them. How shall I serve them? This is called detachment. So when we speak about detachment throughout Prabhupada's books, this is the meaning of detachment. Detachment does not mean disconnecting. This is not detachment. That disconnecting is what the Mayavadis talk about. We're not talking about disconnecting. We're talking about detachment, which means we don't think of any object in this material world, any person in this material world as meant for our enjoyment. We always think, how shall I make them Krishna conscious? How shall I help them? That is our process. So when we say detachment, you have a car, for example. You don't have to think, when I'm going to give up this car. Instead of thinking all these things, I have a car. Let me use it to go to the temple now. We are trying to think about how to engage what we have in the service of Krishna. We're not thinking about, okay, how shall I get disconnected from this car? We're not thinking all these things. This is not a conscious endeavor. Rather, okay, here is this thing. Instead of using it for my sense gratification, let me use it in Krishna's service. That's all. Is that okay? There is some other devotee who wanted to ask a question.
Any
You
other
came
questions?
on, yeah. Somebody came on screen, but then because Prabhu was asking, he.
Radhikapati Prabhu, you have any questions?
No problem. I am not clear. Very nice. Prabhu has explained all questions being answered.
Oh, okay, you had a question which was already answered.
I was thinking that we are chanting, we are practicing. That Prabhu was telling, it is pleasurable. That 16 mala ho gaya, fir hang kar do, fir baad mein dekhega. We go another work. We are busy. We are not able to hold on that that is not coming. So I was thinking that. So Prabhu was explaining.
So that can come because, see, it is not a question of just, it's not a question of just, sorry, I got disconnected because there was an incoming call from Guru Maharaj and I had to answer. I mean, that's the etiquette. You cannot disconnect a call when the Guru Maharaj is calling. Sorry. So I told him that I'll get back to him after the class. So, okay. So, I mean, he wanted to find out something. So I asked him, Guru Maharaj, can I get back to you after the class? He said, it's fine. I mean, he didn't know that I'm giving class, right? Okay. So, what was the point, Prabhuji? I just totally forgot. What is the point which you made?
We are telling, Krishna consciousness is very pleasurable, but we are not getting that pleasure. We are associating with get some pleasure, and we are chanting 16 mala. Then we'll say we'll hanging it and we'll go for the next day. Today finish.
So if we are not getting pleasure, we should think why we are not getting pleasure. Something is wrong in what we are doing, right? Of course, Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu prays that I have no taste for chanting the holy name. But when he says that, he is talking in terms of why I don't have 1,000 tongues, why I don't have 1,000 ears. What is this? I mean, like that, But my point, so we are not on that platform, right? So the more you develop taste, the more you think, oh, this is unlimited. So unlimited. I mean, so that is the meaning of saying that I have no taste. But with us, it's different. When the pure devotees talk, they have no taste. They know Krishna is unlimited, and what is this? I don't have 1,000 years. I don't have what is. They think like that. But with us, it's different. For us, no taste means no taste only, actually. So when we have no taste, we have to understand why this is happening. So Prabhupada says that chanting should be like the genuine cry of a child for its mother. So which means that when we chant, it should be in that mood of genuine cry of a child for its mother. Then the question may come up, how do we develop that genuine cry? That is why I've been saying that we need to read the books. When we read the books, we understand what is our position in this material world. We're in a very precarious position. Any time we can exit, then what happens? We don't even know where we're going. It's a very precarious position. Once we understand the precarious position, then we really think, oh, I really need to cling on to this chanting. Then we chant. When we chant with the mood of crying of the child for its mother. And when we do that, 100%, one will feel taste. There's no doubt in that. So when we don't feel taste, it's because we are not doing it the way we are meant to do it. So we start doing it and we begin to experience taste. And taste is something which keeps on expanding and gets more and more and more and more and more and more. And it's fresher and fresher and fresher. But we need to get into that habit of doing things right. We need to be taste driven. We need to be taste driven in Krishna consciousness. Of course, initially we follow the instructions, but we need to transition from Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti to Raganuga Sadhana Bhakti, which means that we're doing it out of taste. We need to transition. We need to be conscious. This is our goal. We should not be just thinking, okay, Guru Maharaj is instructed, Prabhupada is instructed, therefore we're doing it. Fine, that's preliminary. But ultimately, it should be driven by taste, not just by the instruction. Is it okay? Is it okay?
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you, Hare Krishna. Okay.
Anita Mataji.
Yes.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranams. Very nice class, Prabhuji. You were saying like we should not force the children in Krishna conscious, so that is good. And my question is like when there is a single devotee in a family, neither the parents nor the in-laws nor the children, no one else is the devotee, then what is your opinion, like how we can follow Krishna conscious in the family? So it makes difficult to like progress in Krishna conscious. And what happens is materially also we have to go with them. Some material happenings are like we are going for festivals or some marriage functions or something like that we have to do. So then what is your opinion, Prabhuji? How can we follow
I
that?
have a specific question. You're talking about children with
No. When there is no children, okay, we cannot force, you said, that's fine. What I'm saying is when there is a single devotee in a family, neither the parents nor the in-laws are inclined in Krishna consciousness. Then what is your opinion about that, Prabhuji? We have to be attached materially also with them. So then what can we do? How can we progress?
See, every situation is generally unique, so I can't give an answer which fits all. For some people, it may not, I mean, there are different ways of doing things. But the general principle is that we don't compromise our Krishna consciousness. That's the whole point. It is not that it's not that you suppose you go to a family marriage example, then if they are having onion, it's not that you have to also eat onion. Of course, that's an extreme example. I'm just saying that people always respect you for what you stand up for. There's quite often this misunderstanding that people consider you fanatical, this, that, and all that. That may be a temporary thing, but the point is when people are in trouble, they turn to people who are principled. I've noticed this over and over again. The same people who may have otherwise considered, ridiculed you and whatever they may have done, but when they are in trouble, they'll turn to you because they know that you are principled. But if they see that you're also like them, you also compromise like them, you also do a little bit like this, little bit like that, then they're not going to have that thing. If they see that you stick to your principles. See, the point is, like for example, suppose somebody is going to the workplace, okay? And it's not that while in the workplace, while in the workplace, they're supposed to do work. They're supposed to discuss with their colleagues and do work, and whatever is needed for doing the work, they need to do. It's not that while doing the work, these are karmis, so I should be detached from them. What does it mean? You're going to work there, right? And it's a work environment. And whatever is pertaining to the work, you have to collaborate with people. Otherwise, what is the meaning of going to workplace? So our understanding is that we don't compromise on the principle. It's not that we go eat, so we go with them and go to some karmi restaurant and eat some karmi food. And I'm not talking like that. So my point is when you don't compromise, at the same time, you are not, what do you say? You're not, you're genuine in the sense that when you meet someone, you have to genuinely greet them. If you start thinking that, oh, this person is no better than a dog or camel or ass, which is correct. But at the same time, our philosophy is that we respect everyone because Krishna is residing in their heart also, right? We treat them like a gentleman. Prabhupada said, you may be a third-class man, but I'm supposed to treat you like a gentleman. That is a sign of a gentleman, right? So we behave with everybody, whether it's parents or in-laws or friends or whoever it may be. We behave with everyone in this thing. But at the same time, we do not compromise. We do not compromise our principles. We don't do those things which are forbidden to do. There are some things which are not forbidden. There we have to adjust. But whatever is forbidden, we do not participate in that. That's for sure. Is it okay, Madhya? I mean, I can't give you a clear answer because every situation is different. Because this is a class and I'm just talking only about the principle. How to apply that principle varies from person to person.
Okay, thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Any other questions?
I have a question which may be out of context, but since we're talking about children and setting a right example, there is a question that often kids ask, the youths generally. They always ask, we are in the association of non-devotees, and it is difficult not to engage in conversations. So how do we follow the principles of, not associating with worldly-minded people?
Children is definitely a challenge because they are very vulnerable to peer pressure. Adults, they've already grown up and they know, but children are very as Prabhupada would say, they're very malleable, so they get more easily affected by their association of their peers. So it is going to be very difficult unless they have some peers in Krishna consciousness who they hang out with and who they're together with. Otherwise, generally, they have to have their own. See, there are three things which shape a child's future. One is the swabhava of the child itself. The other is, all of them are 1/3 contribution. 1/3 contribution is the swabhava of the child. 1/3 contribution is the parents. 1/3 contribution is friends and society. So if the swabhava of the child itself is not very strong, then the other two things make a big difference. But if the swabhava is very strong, even if sometimes the parents may not be ideal, or even if the friends may not be so ideal, they'll manage. So it is but generally we say, because Prabhupada says very clearly that association is very important, because sometimes association can overcome your swabhava also. It's very dangerous. Association is very, very dangerous. Even if you have a strong swabhava of Krishna, to be in Krishna conscious, association can still overwhelm it. So as much as possible, they should have devotee association. And this is one of the reasons that Prabhupada wanted schools where devotee children are trained. Of course, we are far away from that. To some extent, it's happening in different parts of the world. But still, we are very far away from the dream that Prabhupada had for us. So it is a work in progress. And what can we do? We can only try to do our best in the meanwhile. There's not much we can really do, except try to be as good an example as possible, trying to be encouraging to them. And I remember Indradumna Maharaj, last time that he came to Mayapur, he was talking to my son. And so he asked him, how many rounds do you chant? And he said, I chant 2 rounds. Then Maharaj, he made a nice point. So he told my son that it's good that you're chanting 2 rounds. You don't have to think about chanting 16 rounds now, he said. You do good that you're doing 2 rounds. But the 2 rounds that you're doing, please do it very attentively. And very nicely he spoke, actually. If you do it very nicely, what is the effect? He said, you will find Krishna consciousness so attractive and so nicely explained. Then he said, it will keep you very strong and all those things. So then my son was quite influenced by what he spoke, that try to chant attentively. So this is the best way we can do. Ultimately, if a person is association also cannot overwhelm a person who's determined. That's for sure. Association is dangerous for a person who's not fully determined. But someone who's fully determined can overcome bad association also. Can deal with it if it's inevitable. So ultimately, we have to somehow or the other find some ways by which they develop the taste. Obviously, by attentive chanting, they can develop the taste. So somehow, if we can encourage them, we really have to pray to the Lord to help us to even Prabhupada used to say that when my Guru Maharaj gave me this order, how he says the secret of achieving it, what does he say? I was constantly thinking, how shall I do it? How shall I do it? How shall I do it? This is the Prabhupada, this is the formula. So he used to think, how shall I do it? How shall I do it? How shall I do it? So if we genuinely think like this, how shall I benefit my child? How shall I benefit my child? How shall I benefit my child? Somehow or the other, through other devotees, Krishna, somehow Krishna will try to, not Krishna, Krishna will definitely tell you what is the best that you can do under the circumstances. Ultimately, free will is there. But what is the best that you can do, you'll be able to do.
Thank you, Prabhu. So is it right to say that the devotee or the child must first equip oneself in and strengthen the bhakti so that, association with the worldly-minded people will also not affect them?
Exactly. Yeah. But see, the advantage of a Gurukul or a school is that association itself will strengthen the bhakti, So that is also important, actually. So that's why I'm saying, ultimately, there's no solution as good as the solution of educating the children right from the beginning with other devotee children. There's no equivalent to that. Everything else is less than that. but we're only hoping that it may work somehow. Like Prabhupada sometimes says, right? We do this, but somehow or the other, he says. Quite often in this purports, he writes like this. Like if one can do this, but if somehow or the other, he says. This is what it means.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. Actually, we took more time with you. Actually,
I think I took.
You have time.
I think I took more time than of yours.
No. Because actually, see, you are wonderfully explain and enlightening various points actually, and in a simple way. So devotees also eager to ask more questions to clarify, especially the child part. Actually, I'm planning for a separate section for that. Actually, for all of us as parents, they need guidance and how to bring the child in the Krishna consciousness. Actually,
the kind of way. I mean, I'm honestly saying, I'm not saying out of some artificial humility or anything. I'm talking genuinely. What I know about children is only 10% of what my wife knows. She puts her mind always into it. She's far more experienced and far more has more knowledge than me in these things, because she deals with children very often, and that's what she puts her mind into. So I mean, if you want to have a session like that, it was important to have her, because she'll be able to share much more knowledge than what I have.
Sure, definitely we required, Prabhu, because actually many of the cases what happened, one thing that always the comparison between the children, even in the Krishna consciousness. See, he is doing 16 rounds, he is doing this, he took the aspiration, he took the shelter. See, but they have some other talents will be there, but we have to guide them properly in such a way.
This is very counterproductive. This is very, very counterproductive, the Bhakti. In fact, we are not even following Bhagavatam if we do that, because Bhagavatam begins, what does it say? If you look at the second verse of the Bhagavatam, if you read the purport, Prabhupada says that we are trying to make a competitionless society. That competition is generated by envy, he says, So this whole thing is completely counterproductive. There should be no comparison with someone else. I mean, otherwise we're not following the Bhagavatam. Because Bhagavatam is saying society of devotees means we are not comparing with each other. We are only trying to get inspired, not comparing. That comparison should never happen. Especially for children, that is a complete, no for children, because that's the thing that can really spoil everything for them.
So actually, because of the holidays, many of the devotees who missed today. So definitely, I know a few Matajis, they missed today, and they are very eager to know how to bring the children in the Krishna consciousness and everything. So definitely, I will keep in touch with you, Prabhu, and Mataji can also, both of you can join and a separate section actually, very soon actually. So sorry for taking your time. You are doing
our honor.
Service there.
It's my pleasure to be speaking to devotees, because Guru Maharaj wants that whatever knowledge we have, we should share. First of all, our devotees, we should share with them, because we always think about preaching to non-devotees. What about our own devotees? We all need knowledge sharing a lot, because that's how I always look forward to devotees who can share their knowledge with me, because it's really important for us to progress.
Correct. And irrespective of your busy schedule, you join and enlightening us with various points. Very happy, very nice to hear more in future also. So please, Prabhu, whenever you have time, please join. His Grace Achintya Caitanya Prabhu ki jai. His Holiness Jai Pataka Swami Maharaj ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Taigora Premanande. Hari Hari Po.
Prabhu, is there a link? I mean, recording of this class or YouTube or something?
Prabhu. Yes, YouTube live is already there.
We will share it with you.
Thank you all. Over to Bikram Prabhu, our last session actually.
So mic is off, Bikram Prabhu. Mic is off. Sorry. We now come to the most fabulous part of our program. Kirtan is the call and response form of chanting that characterizes His Divine Grace A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami, Srila Prabhu, Jai Srila Prabhupada. Kirtan usually offers a journey deep within the very heart of our soul. Kirtan is also an essence of yoga that links one with God. In Bhagavad Gita, as it is one of the world's foremost yoga texts, Arjun noted that yoga and meditation are not easy for many people. That is where the Kirtan comes in. Lord Krishna said that all the yogis, those who have immense faith in him and worship him, are united intimately with him, the most form of yoga through Kirtan. Over to the devotees of Algises for the wonderful Kirtan we are all waiting for.
Death after death.
When these 6 Goswamis lived in Vraja, they revealed the eternal pastimes
Is it audible,
of
Prabhu?
Sri Radha and Krishna. In
Yes,
ecstasy,
yes.
sing the name of Lord Hare and worship Vrindavana, joyfully fixing your mind upon the lotus feet of the bona fide spiritual master and the pure devotees.
The lotus feet of my Guru and the Vaishnavas are my aspiration. Narottama Dasa thus sings Harinama Sankirtana. Hare Krishna.
Prabhu,
The mic
unmute.
is off.
You can start, Bikram Prabhu.
Thank you. Such a wonderful Kirtan. As we come to the end of the program, I would like to thank all the assembled devotees and ask for any forgiveness or any mistake done. And I would also like to thank His Grace Sri Ranga Prabhu and Her Grace Gopigana Gana Geeta Mataji for giving me this opportunity and seva. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, Bikram Prabhu, for taking up the service today. Thank you. Very nicely you are taking the program today. Haribo, Hare Krishna. And thank you so much to all the devotees for joining today. And I need prayers from all the devotees for the good health, long life, and to continue their services for His Holiness Jayapataka Swami Maharaj and other Maharaj. And also we need prayers from all the devotees for all the devotees across the world. Let us chant 3 times for all these wonderful devotees. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So I request all the devotees after this program, please stay with us for a few minutes. We have to
Hare
discuss.
Krishna.
Yeah.
We have some prayer requests.
Okay.
Okay, Radhika Mataji, Radhika Shankar Mataji and Shankar Prabhu are traveling to US today morning. So we request prayers for them for their safe trip to US. They are going after 2.5 years to see their son. So prayers for them and their son. Deepali Mataji's mother and her niece are traveling to Dubai today. So we need prayer request for Mataji and their mother and the niece so that they have a safe travel. We also need prayers for Rujul to get back to normal very soon. Sachi Mataji has already reached Canada and she's traveling towards Nigda's house. So thank you all for your prayers. We also need prayers for Sundarachal Prabhu's grandmother who has been admitted in the hospital. And we also need prayers for Naresh Chaitanya, who has been now Bhagavan Prabhu and Shubhangi Mataji have left him in VT University. So he is there. So let us all pray for his wonderful future. We need prayers for all the children who are in public exam, 10th and 12th, so that they do well in their exams and also in their spiritual life and take up their further studies.
Also, prayer request for Vrindanani Father Lakshmana Murthy.
Yes, we need prayers for Vrindanani Mataji's father, who is not keeping well. So he's under treatment. We need strong prayers for him to recover soon. We also need prayers for Shri Prada Mataji as she's visiting Coimbatore. And also for Bhagavan Prabhu and Shubhangi Mataji, they'll be traveling back on Tuesday, I think, to Dubai.
Any other prayers?
Any other prayer request?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, we are traveling to India on Wednesday.
Yes. Yeah. Deepak Joshi Prabhu and family, they are traveling on 4th, correct?
Yes, Prabhu.
Yeah. So need prayers for their safe trip to India and back. Any other devotees traveling? I think Kavirupa Mataji already traveled, I believe. So Mataji sent a message actually. So need prayers for her also, safe trip. Any other prayers? Okay, let us chant 3 times for all the devotees. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
May 3rd is Akshaya Tritiya and the start of Chandan Yatra. So request everybody to start applying Chandan to all the deities. It is the hot season, so the cooling of the body will be done with applying Chandan. So they recommend Chandan Yatra is starting on the 3rd. So we recommend you all to apply Chandan to all the deities. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now I need all your suggestions and everything. Actually, we are planning for a offline program from next week. Just a second. Okay, request all the devotees kindly please put on your camera and give your various suggestions and everything how we can go about that.